All right. Hey guys, welcome to your explainer if you missed it for the Amusing the Million and Only Yesterday project. If you weren't in class or you just need a reminder about what this thing is going to be all about, this video is here for you. You will find everything you need about this inside of our Plus Stuff folder in Schoology, and again, this will count as our test replacement grade for the semester. So what you're going to be doing here, is you are going to be taking elements from Amusing the Million, which we've read in class, and then also another supplementary text called Only Yesterday, and we'll explain more about what that is here in a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what the description for the project. Now, I trust that you can read the overview, so I'm going to go ahead and skip down to the second paragraph and begin there. We're about to begin a month-long project on both of these works and some of the larger transformations in American society in the early 20th century. You will be able to choose a variety of subject matters to address, as well as be able to represent your learning in multiple ways. The only rules that apply are 1, you meet the goals and objectives of the project, and 2, you utilize both Amusing the Million and Only Yesterday as source material. Now, you're not limited to those, but you have to use them in some capacity. And we'll talk about more in a second how you do that. Goals and objectives of the project. 1. Explain one shift in American society and culture, such as those in gender norms, leisure time, consumer behavior. I mean, this list could be endless. A shift in American society and culture is super vague. It can be anything. The next one. It says, compare, contrast these changes in American society in the early 1900s versus the 1920s, as documented by Amusing the Million and Only Yesterday. So essentially what we're doing here, let's say we take leisure time, right? And we'll talk more about the different subjects you could pick. You're going to hold up the ways that you see that manifest in Amusing the Million, which again is right around the turn of 1900s. We're seeing the facade of Victorianism begin to crumble just a little bit. And then you're going to compare that to what you find in Only Yesterday, either directly or the traits in there. And again, Only Yesterday is, our second text. And at that point, Victorianism has totally crumbled and collapsed. Now, if you kind of understand the big picture of what you're doing here, there's a couple of important things to realize. 1, you have a lot of freedom here compared to, for example, your honor and slavery project. But with that freedom comes a lot of responsibility. So for example, last time I limited you to like 8 or 9 different subtitles that were in, the title of honor and slavery. Here you have much more freedom, to pick what you are interested in and what you can do. And I'll show you some examples of that here in a second. The second thing, is that you can actually be if you think about this, you can actually be pretty strategic about how you're going to read this second text, Only Yesterday. Because if you haven't started reading it, and at this point some of your classmates already might have, if you think about, for example, let's say you're going to compare transportation from 1900 to 1920, you don't have to read all of that book. You could go in and, using the index that I provided for you, read only the pages in Only Yesterday that apply to that particular topic. And that way it saves you some time. All right. Methods. There's a listing of how you can do your project here. You're going to see it's very similar to honor and slavery. You have a lot of different ways you can show your knowledge, and I'll get to that here in a second. How am I grading them? Right here, and you can read on the left-hand side. Pause the video if you need to. An in-depth explanation. Both the 1900s and 1920s are examined equally, and why we should care is talked about. So for example, if you say that the way that people are entertained, or if you talk about how dating changes from 1900 to 1920, tell us why that matters. The next one, again, the compare-contrast. And your comparisons and contrasts go beyond obvious answers. So you're not saying, for example, people go, and we'll pick gender norms. People go from wearing, full Victorian dresses that are very few inches off the ground, all the way to, we can see that we're in the flapper era. That's definitely true, but could you say any more, could you make a larger point aside of that, besides the fact, just factually speaking, that the dresses are getting shorter? Okay. Use of evidence and sources. You use both as sources, okay, and you make your citations, which again is really easy. It's right down here, okay, just really simple, okay. And then the presentation doesn't look like you put it, together the night before, slapped, together with duct tape and spit. All right. So now how to do your project. You have, again, a whole litany of ideas here, okay. For what you did with your honor and slavery project, I'm a believer that variety is the spice of life. So if you tried something last time, especially like if it wasn't good, try something new. Give yourself a chance to, kind of embark on a new way to show what you have learned here. And I would also encourage you that because we're doing a compare-contrast, there might be options here that you might try that will really open themselves up better to this setup as opposed to doing the one on honor and slavery that we did last semester. Now, outside of that, there's so many different examples of things that you can do here, and I could go on and on and on in this video about those. And I have plenty in class. Please ask me and I will show you some relevant, cool examples that you can do. The one thing that I want to caution you here with is that with the due date that we have set in class, and please see the course map for that for more details, I want this, whatever you create and whatever you design, this is not meant to be a burden for you. That is not the point of this. This is a chance for you to talk and to explore something that is personally exciting to you and to show that knowledge off in a way that is fun and meaningful. This is not meant to be something that you don't enjoy doing, okay? Ideally speaking. Okay, outside of that, there's one other note that I want to make here about the project before I close out the video, and that is on the sources. So for example, your particular interests, okay, for instance, you might have seen that like in Only Yesterday, which I will pull up here briefly for us on Schoology, you might have seen that Only Yesterday, there's topics that they talk about in that book that we personally did not have the chance to get to explore in Amusing the Million. And part of that is simply because of what the two different authors talk about. So because of that, okay, I've had some people who, for example, have really wanted to look at something that was between the two books but wasn't there. You are more than welcome, for example, let's say you want to compare crime of the 1900s, that was, the kind of things there, compared to that of the crime that was in the 1920s. Because, for example, Only Yesterday here has a whole chapter on Al Capone and the rise of gangsterism. In that case, you probably will have to do some outside research, okay? And again, just URL citations, but what you find needs to be credible and valuable in terms of helping us understand that meaningful compare-contrast. Now, how can you still utilize Amusing the Million as a source in this instance, even though there's nothing really too much in there about crime? Well, there's things that you can talk about that are larger cultural traits at the time that would relate to that topic at hand. So for example, if you're talking about crime, as we know, the Victorians would have a field day with talking about why crime exists. Okay, so you would be able to relate and connect back to that topic and things that he talked about in that book, even though it wasn't directly referencing crime. Okay, another example could be for let's take what happened to let's say you really want to talk just about amusement parks in 1900 versus 1920. Well, he didn't talk very much about amusement parks in Only Yesterday, as you'll see soon, or soon see here. But there's larger things that he talks about in the book, like leisure time and entertainment, that you could use as source material. The thing that I want to mention with you before I go here with Only Yesterday is that index that I was talking about, it is right here. Okay, so if you click below the chapters, and what this does is I have indexed for you some of the major topics that are inside the book that will hopefully save you some time so you don't have to go rooting around in Only Yesterday to find them. Okay, so all of this is listed in here. By the way, this is not totally comprehensive. There could have been things that I missed or I didn't think about putting in. Please ask me if you need additional help with resources and examples. Other than that, we will work on this in class with additional brainstorming and other research. So I look forward to seeing what we're going to make together. All right. Bye-bye.